They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You can't have peace in the Middle East if they have a nuclear weapon. And they can't have a nuclear weapon, and they've been told that very strongly.
Quando Donald Trump fala sobre armas nucleares, ele toca em um medo que marcou gerações de americanos. Durante quase meio século, os Estados Unidos viveram sob a sombra de uma guerra que poderia destruir o planeta. Uma guerra que nunca aconteceu, mas que moldou a política, a cultura e a vida cotidiana. Era a Guerra Fria.
There was a grain, and sometimes a significant grain, of legitimacy in what we were doing. There were threats from the Soviet Union. There were. The Soviet Union played dirty and all of that, and so we needed to have efforts. But all too often, these legitimate concerns spin off illegitimate, if not out and out corrupt practices through which people get political support, they get money, etc. And what they capitalize on as they do this is that Americans, and maybe this is true of all empires, all declining great countries, at a certain point, the powerful become a little bit too proud of their ignorance.
A Segunda Guerra Mundial terminou em 1945. Os Estados Unidos e a União Soviética derrotaram a Alemanha nazista juntos. Mas essa aliança durou pouco. Os dois países tinham sistemas políticos, econômicos e projetos de poder incompatíveis. Em março de 1947, o então presidente Harry Truman foi ao Congresso. Para muitos historiadores, aquele discurso marcou o início da Guerra Fria. Nele, Truman declarava: "A gravidade da situação enfrentada pelo mundo hoje requer meu comparecimento a uma sessão conjunta do Congresso. Estão envolvidos a política externa e a segurança nacional deste país." E foi com esse discurso, que ficou conhecido como Doutrina Truman, que o presidente convoca os Estados Unidos a se comprometerem para conter o comunismo e a União Soviética, que foi sua aliada na Segunda Guerra. Na disputa por áreas de influência ao redor do mundo, Estados Unidos e União Soviética estiveram no centro de alguns dos principais episódios do século XX. A Guerra da Coreia, a construção do Muro de Berlim, a Guerra do Vietnã e a crise dos mísseis de Cuba foram alguns dos capítulos mais emblemáticos desse confronto. Embora nunca tenham entrado em guerra diretamente, as duas superpotências disputaram poder, influência e aliados em praticamente todos os continentes. Nascia ali uma disputa que definiria a política internacional pelas 4 décadas seguintes. Mas a Guerra Fria não era apenas uma disputa entre governos. Para milhões de americanos, ela foi traduzida em medo do cotidiano. Crianças eram ensinadas a se preparar para o caso de uma bomba atômica atingir os Estados Unidos.
First, you have to know what happens when an atomic bomb explodes. You will know when it comes. We hope it never comes, but we must get ready. It looks something like this. There is a bright flash, brighter than the sun, brighter than anything you've ever seen. If you are not ready and did not know what to do, it could hurt you in different ways.
A possível ameaça era estampada em ilustrações. E testes eram realizados em regiões como Nevada e mostravam o efeito de uma bomba atômica.
4, 3, 2, 1.
By the end of World War II, all of the people in power had lived through 2 massive world wars. And there was a widespread expectation that it was a matter of when, not if, there would be a third. Whereas, of course, in the years before what was now being called World War I, it had been previously called the Great War, it was believed there was too much to lose. It was so obviously a bad idea. Now, the faith in the human race's capacity to avoid war had been greatly diminished.
Ao longo da Guerra Fria, os Estados Unidos e a União Soviética acumularam mais de 60 mil armas nucleares. Para muitos especialistas da época, uma guerra parecia inevitável.
The fact that we managed to have an intense nuclear arms race, building up a stockpile above 60,000 nuclear weapons by the mid-1980s, and managed not to destroy the world, that was seen as the least likely option. We're living through the least likely scenario.
Para além do medo de bombas, outro medo que tomou conta dos Estados Unidos foi a suposta presença de comunistas no território americano. Medo esse que foi liderado pelo senador Joseph McCarthy.
I intend to go into those states and give the American people the cold, documented picture of the sellout in Korea, the extent to which communism has been directing our foreign policy, our suicidal foreign policy, if you please.
Foi a partir do senador que surge o período hoje conhecido como macartismo, que se tornou um dos episódios mais controversos da história política americana. Na época, uma série de artistas, intelectuais e políticos foram perseguidos e censurados, por causa de uma suposta ligação com o comunismo. E para os críticos hoje, o combate ao comunismo nos Estados Unidos serviu também para perseguir adversários políticos e restringir liberdades civis.
McCarthy went too far from day one. McCarthy was a raw political cynic who exploited. There was no real threat of communists in the United States of America, but he realized, wait, we've got a foreign enemy. Now let's find a domestic enemy. Yes, there were some communists and socialists, entre comillas, because what is a socialist in the United States of America? And he made it into a very cruel political tool.
E hoje, em meio ao governo Trump, Fulton traça alguns paralelos entre o inimigo anterior, como o comunismo nos anos 50, com o momento em que os Estados Unidos vive. Mas agora, o alvo não são mais os comunistas, mas sim os imigrantes.
There are some parts of using some issues that have a grain of truth, like we needed a migration policy, right? We needed it. We needed to improve certain things. We needed to find a new role to not be the policeman in the world. But what he has done, particularly through immigration, is he has divided the United States anew. He's gone back and reopened issues that we tried, as Brazil has tried over the years. Race issues, race tensions, who does what, as well as keeping the oligarchs from having too much power. McCarthyism, this is all the same approach, different problems, different foreign threats. Remember, he was talking about the invasion, Latin American invasion. They're bringing in disease, they're bringing in drugs, they're bringing in rapists, they're bringing in violence. Actually, even if you look at the ones that he has deported, they're not as bad as a lot of people that we have here. And the so-called war on drugs is a surrogate issue for us to keep the relationship with Latin Americans off balance. There's a legitimate issue, but you use it for domestic political purposes, because what they do, and McCarthy did it as well, we call them dog whistles. A dog whistle is a whistle that we blow and we can't hear it, but dogs can hear it. A dog whistle. And the dog whistle issues tend to be things like racism. And it's dividing our country in very dangerous ways, very harmful ways, at a time that with AI, with the need for competition with China, we need, instead of crying in our little baby milk and stuff and saying, oh, the Chinese are unfair, we need to get our rears in gear and get out and work and compete, because we can.
O fim da União Soviética em 1991 não encerrou os debates sobre como os Estados Unidos lidam com os grandes rivais internacionais. Hoje, muitos observadores buscam paralelos entre a Guerra Fria e a relação dos Estados Unidos com a China.
Using some of the same tools as we did during the Cold War, but we're in a different era, and China is a very different country. The biggest problem that we have with China is that they are beating us at things where we thought we should be number one. But the Chinese then come in and say, yeah, you don't want it? I'll take it. And they invest. And yeah, we don't like some of it. What they do is a little bit tricky, right? But they have a strategic vision that we don't have. They have discipline that we don't have. And we don't like that. We want to be number one without doing the work to be number one. So it's different from the Soviet Union, because we were number one and we had Western Europe. We took care of our allies. We had good communications. We don't invest in our friends anymore, so we can't expect our friends to invest in us.
A Guerra Fria terminou há mais de 3 décadas, mas seus efeitos continuam presentes na política americana. Hoje, com o enfraquecimento de alianças tradicionais, a guerra da Ucrânia e tensões envolvendo Taiwan, Hershberg vê sinais de uma transformação na ordem internacional criada após a Segunda Guerra.
I mean, the overarching question, and this was being asked in the late 1940s also, are we evolving from a post-war world to a pre-war world? I mean, you know, in terms of the danger. Obviously, only people living in the future, you know, are going to know the moderate to distant future. But, you know, it's very worrisome.